So I've seen some headlines floating around about how Arcane is a commercial failure, and that might be true. Bloomberg is leading this story, and they're often pretty reliable with this kind of thing. They say that both seasons of Arcane cost Riot a total of roughly $250 million to make, with Tencent and Netflix only covering $3 million per episode each, for a total of $108 million income, roughly. If you count like merchandising and things, it's probably a bit more than that. But either way, it's still a pretty big gap between the cost to make Arcane and the amount of money they got back. Bloomberg goes on to say that Riot had hoped this gap would be filled by Arcane, fueling an increase in player numbers and skin sales for League of Legends, but it just wasn't enough to make up this gap. How much of that gap was made up by skin sales, we don't actually know, and we can only speculate. Marc, who is one of Riot's co-founders, will definitely know what that gap was, and he has since explained on Twitter that they know they didn't make money with Arcane, but it's okay, because Arcane is an example of the kind of risks that they want to take as a company. And Marc has this fantastic line where he says that they sell skins so they can make things like Arcane, and not the other way around. That is a fantastic statement in the face of adversity. And that in the end, they are happy with how Arcane did because players are happy with Arcane. So yeah, on one hand, in a vacuum as a single product, Arcane did fail. It's hard to argue against that. But in the context of Riot, who has a ton of money and they want to take risks and they want to branch out into new media, I'd argue it was probably a success for them overall. And would it have been better if it made money? Like, yes, of course. Like, for sure it would have been. But there is a concept in business called loss leaders, which essentially is when you purposefully sell a product at a loss in order to bring people into your shop or into your product ecosystem, and then you make up for that loss through the sale of other products to those customers. Examples like eggs and milk are really like obvious ones in supermarkets, but for gaming, if you want like a relevant example, the 3DS did this back in 2011. And today the 3DS is the 12th highest selling console of all time, or the 5th if you only count handhelds. Nintendo do consider this console to be a success. But when it launched in 2011, it was $250 per console. It flopped. No one was buying it, and Nintendo cut the price of that handheld to just $170, so almost a third, just 4 months into its life to try and boost the sales. And it worked incredibly well, as shown by this graph. Sales went through the roof, and Nintendo were quite open about this being a loss leader strategy. That's what they called it, and they assured stakeholders that game sales would make up for the money that they were now losing on each console sale. Today, according to Nintendo, each console sold about 5 games on average, and the console was, as I said a second ago, considered profitable and a success by Nintendo, so it did work for them. Now, if we consider Arcane to be a loss leader in the same way the 3DS was, then you could argue that it's okay because some of the people who watched Arcane could move over to other products like League of Legends or Legends of Runeterra. Now, we don't know exact viewership numbers for Arcane, only Netflix knows that, and probably Riot, but Flix Patrol, which tracks all this stuff on Netflix, like what's trending and things like that, told us that Arcane was at one point number 1 in 64 countries around the world, which is insane. Arcane was watched a lot. There's no debate about that. And therefore, there's a lot of consumers of Arcane that have the potential to move over to other Riot products and purchase their stuff, and to be a crazy good loss leader for Riot. But that's not what happened. Despite all that high viewership, apparently the conversion rate to other products was pretty low, with only a few people who watched the show turning up to play League, and more importantly, very, very few of them buying skins for League. And it's kind of hard to tell why that is, and I don't like to make videos about stuff without reliable evidence or data to back up what I'm saying, but in this case, it's really hard to do that because it's a nuanced subject and the only person who will hold that data is Riot. Also, it's kind of pretty obvious. We know that League of Legends is just not friendly to new players, and it's quite a difficult game to get into, I think, nowadays, unless you have a friend to kind of show you what to do and explain things and be patient with you. And so it's not surprising players didn't stick around, even if they did come from Arcane. So, failure? No, I still don't think so, because Arcane has done something amazing. It cemented the world of Runeterra into the minds of millions, easily tens of millions of people around the world. It's been the talk of the town, not just in gaming circles, but in what I call generic media. My mum knows about Arcane. She's a 60, 70-year-old boomer. She doesn't know games, but she knows Arcane. Even the BBC ran articles on Arcane, and that's like the most generic news you can get in the UK. Even if you look at this like roughly 140 million gap in revenue and cost for Arcane, that's money that has just been used to advertise this world to the whole world. Like, as a marketing budget, if you think of it like that, it's pretty good value. So, was Arcane successful as a loss leader? Who knows? Only Riot can really answer that question. Was the money worth it for them? It sounds like it was. Lots of people know about Runeterra, and I think as other games come out in the League of Legends universe, there's a lot more people that will be more receptive to those games now they've watched Arcane, especially as this channel was built upon the Riot MMO. That game is going to benefit from Arcane and the next season of whatever the Arcane follow-up is, which is definitely going to be a story in Ionia and Noxus. I will die on this hill. The story will follow Riven. It will start in Noxus, then move to Ionia, where we see Singed up to his old tricks with Emerson, and we'll see the events of the Blood of Noxus comic play out, and all of that stuff. Aurelia, I'm willing to put money on this. Anyway, I'm just waffling now. I think Arcane did well. What do you guys think? Let me know. Pleasure to do a video again, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.